Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be about Daily Race C in Gran Turismo 7. If you haven't yet, make sure you join up on the Race On Discord. You can find the link in the description below. In there you can find a bunch of Gran Turismo 7 content as well as Gran Turismo 7 streams. Alright, so Daily Race C this week is in Group 3 and we're going to be doing Daytona Road Course. As you see, we are choosing the Audi R8 Evo. And we got a qualifying time of a 45.9, which is pretty decent. Definitely has some more room for improvement, but overall it was a decent time considering the division that we're currently in. The Audi actually wasn't our first choice. We were going to go with the newer NSX. However, I felt like with the setup on this track, it definitely was lacking in some areas. So we decided to just go with the Audi, especially after the restrictions that they added on top of the BOP. So now there is a power limit and a weight limit. These changes probably came last minute to try to diversify the grid in everybody's cars as well as minimize VGT spam. So some things to keep in mind: this race does have tire wear and it also has fuel consumption. The multipliers are tire wear 15x and fuel 7x. So basically we're gonna have to pit. So keeping that in mind, we have to strategize when we're going to go into pit and how aggressive or conservative we're going to be with the fuel mix. And also we have to take care of our tires, because if we don't, then it's just going to hurt our pace. And basically that's the last thing that you want to happen, because this race is 10 laps. So any pace that you lose earlier on might hurt you down the line. And as you see in the bottom right, there's like a little overlay of a menu. So that is the fuel mix menu in game. For some reason in the replay mode it doesn't show it, so I just had to crop the video over it so you guys can see, because this is vital information and you guys can see how aggressive I'm going with the fuel and just some changes I'm making depending on what position I'm in, whether if I'm like going into the pits and etc. So this is just a good way so you guys can understand, and when I mention certain things you guys can know exactly what I'm talking about. So currently I'm in P1. I have a decent gap to second place, but it's not the end all be all. Kind of the mentality that I was going into these races was I need to be as consistent as possible. So basically when I'm on full power, which is the 1 setting, I'm pushing my consistent pace. However, when I go to the 2 setting to save some more fuel, I am losing pace, in return maybe closing the gap from second to me. So those are some things that you got to keep in mind depending on the gap between each other. So I think it's a good time to kind of get into what you can do to save fuel, because like I said, it is a 10 lap race and you have to pit. So you want to make it as far as you can within the race before you pit. So there's 2 major ways that you can save fuel. So you can mess with your fuel mix, and like I said, it hurts your pace depending on how conservative you go with fuel. So you have to keep that in mind. But another way that you can save fuel is short shifting. So instead of you riding out your gear and shifting early, that would just net you fuel that otherwise you're not using because you're not riding out your gear. So how do you prolong your tires or prevent tire wear? Well, there's a couple ways. So one way is being smooth with your inputs. So if you take a look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see my speed and also my gear and RPMs. So that little red dot that's moving continuously is actually reenacting my inputs. At the very beginning of the RPM is the left lockup, and the very right at the end of the RPMs is the right lockup, theoretically. So the importance of that is once you go to those 2 extremes on the left and the right, you'll have the most tire wear. So you want to try to avoid those spots as much as possible. There is times where you just can't avoid going to those 2 extremes, and that's fine. Just try to minimize how much you're actually in that part of your steering lock. Another way that you guys can save your tires and prolong them even more is just simply not drifting as much, and also preventing loss of traction. Those 2 things can really help you a lot, and they can maybe make the difference in the race. So now we are on the near cam view, which is the one I use. So you guys can kind of get an idea of what I see and how I'm approaching the track, certain spots that I'm hitting. You guys can also see where I'm saving fuel, because that is very important, because I need to avoid losing pace but at the same time not go too slow. So as you guys can see in the bottom left, there is a gas meter as well as a tire wear meter, and if you look very closely you'll see a little bit of red, not too much, so we're doing good on tires. Our fuel is about at around half, a little over half, so very soon we're gonna have to make a pit stop and we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna approach it. So I want to build on a point that I was trying to make earlier about strategy. So you have to go into these races with a strategy. Even if you don't think you have a strategy, you do. For example, some people are more aggressive on fuel, some are more conservative, some people are worse with tire wear, some are better. Subconsciously or consciously, that will decide when you'll go into the pits. That might even make you drive faster because you're like, I have all this extra fuel. That might mean I have to drive more cautiously because my tires are wearing out. And one way that you can work on your strategy is actually just putting it to the test. There is no better practice than actual in-game situations. If you are too aggressive on fuel and let's say you run out one race, then you know you have to be a little bit more conservative. So you testing those out and seeing what works and which doesn't will ultimately help you optimize your strategy. So Silent caught up, he got into the slip and now he's ahead of us, so we're just gonna give him some room. And actually he goes wide, he breaks a little early, gives us room back. So we're just gonna continue with the same line since he's not in the way. So now we know he's in slip, we know that he's very close, so we can either try to break slip, be more aggressive on fuel, or we can just allow him to be there because like I said, we haven't even got to our pit stop yet. So it's not the end all be all if he's like right on us. I think it's important to note the amount of focus this requires because you need to be paying attention to a lot of things. You need to be paying attention to your tires, your fuel, your position. Once you're in tune with all those details, then it will just allow you to focus on your racing and your lines. In return, just making you more confident when you're out on the track. Even though this guy in second is fairly close, I'm not really worried about them. I'm always aware and I'm always trying to race clean and fast. That's always the goal. Like I was mentioning earlier, there was some changes made to this race. In particular, this race is actually delayed some hours because they were making these changes before it came out. And I think the main reason that they made these changes and put a power limit and a weight limit was because of the meta that was going to be used in this race. So before the daily races come out, you will be able to see them, you'll see the track, and then you'll see extra info. And people were experimenting, seeing which build might actually work for this. And if you're not aware, or if you don't play Gran Turismo 7, there's a current issue with VGT cars or Vision GT cars. When they balance the cars, for some reason they just don't balance correctly, and also it happens with the hybrids. As you see, Silent's going to be trying to make another move on the outside. We're going to do the same thing, give him some room. He doesn't fight too hard, so we just continue on like nothing happened. Like I said, it's getting closer and closer to when we're going to have to pit, so things are going to start to heat up. So if you look at our fuel and our tire wear, things have changed drastically from the last time that I mentioned it. We're currently like on a third of gas, and we're currently having a significant amount more of tire wear. So it is hurting our pace at this moment, and trust me, I do feel the difference. And also another thing that you can see is the pack is slowly getting closer and closer. So this is going to be a very intense pit stop, and also this is going to be a very intense second half of the race. So we're definitely going to be pitting this lap, and the reason why we're going to be pitting this lap, even though we might be able to get past another lap, is because we do not want to pit later and have the chance of them catching up on fresher tires, because then that would be way worse. That would be way worse because their tires are already warmed up and they're already good, they're already in the rhythm, and I'm just getting out of the pits. No, that's not gonna work. So this part we're going to be trying to push it as hard as we can because we need to get into the pits as soon as possible, because there is a delay between when you actually go into the pits and when your car actually gets the changes that you want. Now we're on the final banking. We're going to be going through some things that I'm thinking about when I go into the pits and some things that I'm keeping an eye on because it's very important. Alright, right off the bat we get some fresh new hard tires, and next to everyone's name it will say that they're in the pits and the fuel they have. So you can see how well some people maybe saved their fuel or how poorly they did. When we come out of the pits we're going to be going into the 6th lap, so keep that in mind. The fuel is based on how many laps, and it also has the percentage as well. So the way that I wanted to approach this was get as much fuel as possible, and that will allow me to be aggressive if I need to, either making up positions or just extending the gap between myself and maybe second place, depending on what position we get out of the pits. Alright, so we get out of the pits in 4th place. Keep in mind the dude in 1st place did not pit, so at the end of this lap he'll definitely be going in, so we would only have to worry about 2nd, 3rd leading up to this point. We have the fuel, we have the new tires, so we just need to push. We need to make up time, we need to make up positions. We only have 2 people ahead of us, so we have our work cut out for us. We have Silent in 3rd and we have Slicer in 2nd. Like I said, the person in 1st did not pit, so we don't have to really worry about them. So we're going to be pushing this hard because we need to get into slip, because we do not want the gap between Slicer and Silent to get even bigger, because if that's the case then we're going to have to work even harder to possibly catch up. We don't know how hard the person in 3rd was pushing it as far as pace, so we need to get in front of him as soon as possible. It seems that we're already making up time, so if we can push it, we might even catch up going into the 1st turn. As you see, I put the fuel mix on 2. I didn't really need to do that because I had the fuel. It was just interesting that I actually did that. Seems that Silent dipped into the dirt a little bit. I don't think he got a penalty from this, but it just kind of shows some inconsistency there, so we're going to try to take advantage of that. So it seems we're making up time on 1st place, so if we can get very close within this lap, then we'll be in a great spot, and then we can start applying some pressure. This part was definitely a mistake, and it was pretty rough, especially considering we were getting onto the straight. The gap between 2nd and myself definitely increased, but this part coming up, there is a very hard penalty, so most of the time people try to take it a little safe just to make sure they don't get a penalty, especially since we're in the 7th lap. So if we can do it right the same way we've been doing, then we'll be fine and we might actually catch up. And as you see, we gained a lot of time. It seems like they made a mistake, and 2nd place actually picks up a 2-second penalty. So 2nd place isn't going to be an issue for us because the penalty zone is actually right ahead, right next to the pits. So we just have to worry about 1st place. So 2nd place commits to the left so we don't run into them. Nicely done by them. And now we just have 1st place ahead of us. We need to close this gap as soon as possible, because as soon as we do, then we can start applying pressure. 1st place actually went wide here and they lost a lot of time, so now we're just inching closer and closer. The gap between us 2 and 3rd and 4th is significant, so if we don't make any major mistakes, then it'll just be us 2 in the play. This section that we're coming up to, I was doing pretty well the entire race on, so definitely that allowed me to be more aggressive without really getting out of my comfort zone. So as you see, they braked a little early, so we are getting very close. So at this point, we have to decide whether if we want to try to immediately make the pass or if we just want to stay behind and see how they react to us being on them. So we're going to be trying to make the pass here, see what they do, and we get cut off a little bit. Definitely defending a little too hard, but that's fine. Still have some room in between us. So once I saw that they were defending pretty hard, we're just going to see exactly if they try to mimic all our movements, and it seems like they are. So we know right off the bat that they're going to be defending pretty hard. So we're going to go down the inside, just make it as awkward as we can. This is actually the first time I've raced this individual, so I don't know how they're going to react to certain things. So we're kind of just like testing things out, see if maybe me being on the inside messes them up or whatever the case may be. Alright, so now we are on the 9th lap. We're going to be taking this first turn just like before. We're going to minimize as much distance as we can. Keep it very close in between us. We have basically this lap and one more, and we're going to have to see what we can do. So far, the person in first definitely was keeping it cool. They weren't making any major mistakes. They definitely was taking some parts wide, but overall their pace was still fine. So going into this part, I could definitely tell I was doing this way better because I was making up a lot of time. And as you see, I'm basically bumper to bumper. We're just doing our best to apply pressure in those sharp turns, making it known that we are right behind them, that any mistake they make will cost them that position. So if you remember last time when we tried to make the pass, they were defending pretty hard. So we're going to try to get them with an okie doke. So basically act like we're going to commit to one side and go the other way. So as you see here, boom, yep, now we got the space. You can't cut us off. You get a little bit of contact, that's fine, not too bad. We're going to brake at the same spot that we normally do. We're not going to brake too late because we do not want to risk going off the track for whatever reason. So at this current moment, we are on the last banking going into the 10th lap, so we have to make a move. There is no other laps. This is it, the final lap coming up. As you see, we have the fuel, we have the tires. We're going to be pushing this last lap pretty hard. We're going to keep the gap as close as possible, and we're going to be in a favorable position to take advantage of any mistakes that happen. So take a quick look at the distance between us when we're going into the turn versus when we hit the apex. We are making a considerable amount of time up, so we are literally right there. We're going to be trying to make a move on them if they go wide at all. So let's see what happens. So Slicer goes wide, we take the inside, we're getting on the curb, we're going to try to get the pass, and Slicer doesn't defend too hard and we get the position. This next part is crucial. If we give up the inside, they're definitely going to take it. So we're going to take it ourselves. We're going to get on the curb. We're going to get on the gas early, and we're going to get a great exit. So they're in slip. We have one chicane coming up, and then we have the final banking going into the finish line. There's a good amount of distance in between us, but the slip is going to be kicking in, and going into this last chicane, we're going to have to defend. Second place is creeping up. They're going to try to challenge us on the outside. We're going to keep the inside because there is a very strong penalty on the right exit. So we do not want to hit that at all. We get a good line, good exit, and we're going on to the final banking into this checkered flag. Slip is still in play. He's gaining a lot of time on this final banking, and this is going to be a very close finish. We're not going to block him. We're going to play fair. We're going to take the inside. He's going to go wide. Coming up to the finish line, we are neck and neck. We finished 2 thousandths of a second behind. That was a very, very close race. Here is my point of view of the last couple seconds. That was neck and neck. That was some good racing. GG's to everybody that was racing. I hope you all have a great day or great night, whichever time zone you're in, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.